Imagine this, a casino is on fire, flames are shooting into the sky over a Swiss lake, and somewhere into the chaos, a rock band watches helplessly as their plans go up in smoke. But instead of giving up, they do something crazy. They sneak into an empty building in the middle of winter, set up their gear, and record one of the greatest rock albums ever made. This is the story of Deep Purple's Machine Head. To understand why Machine Head sounds the way it does, we need to go back one step. In 1971, Deep Purple released an album called Fireball. It was a solid record, fans liked it, but something wasn't quite right. The band felt like they were holding back. Fireball had energy, sure, but also had a lot of different sounds going on. Some songs were experimental, some were almost funky. It felt like the band was still figuring out exactly what they wanted to be. By the end of 1971, Deep Purple were one of the biggest rock bands in the world. They had been touring non-stop, night after night, and they were playing to massive crowds. And something happens when you play it live that much. You get tighter, you get louder, you get more powerful. 5 members, Ritchie Blackmore on guitar, Roger Glover on bass, Ian Pace on drums, John Lord on keyboards, and Ian Gillan on vocals, had become an unstoppable live machine. The band wanted their next record to capture that raw power. They were done experimenting. They wanted something heavy, direct, and mean. They wanted an album that sounded exactly like Deep Purple playing at full force. That mindset is what drove every decision they made on Machine Head. Less polish, more power, and it worked. Now let's talk about that iconic album cover. If you've ever seen it, you know it's simple but striking. It shows the band's name and album title against a plain background with a slightly blurry photograph of the band. But here's something most people don't know. The cover was actually inspired by the chaos surrounding the recording sessions themselves. The band had very little time to put together proper artwork. Everything about making the album had been rushed and difficult, so they went with something raw and unpolished, which actually matched the music perfectly. The gritty, almost rough look cover was a reflection of how the album was made, under pressure, in difficult conditions, with no frills and no nonsense. It wasn't fancy, but neither was the music. And that was exactly the point. Here's where the story gets wild. Deep Purple had traveled to Montreux, Switzerland in December 1971. They planned to record the album using a mobile studio, basically a recording truck owned by the Rolling Stones. They were going to record in the Montreux Casino, which was a perfect venue. It was big, it was open, and available. The night before recording was set to begin, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention were playing a concert at the casino. Deep Purple were in the audience, watching the show. Then, someone in the crowd fired a flare gun into the rattan ceiling of the venue. The ceiling caught fire immediately. Within minutes, the entire casino was burning. The band ran outside along with everyone else. They stood at the edge of Lake Geneva and watched the casino burn to the ground. Smoke billowed out across the water. It was a terrifying sight, and it completely destroyed their recording plans. But here's the thing about Deep Purple. They didn't panic. Roger Glover looked out at smoke drifting over the lake and thought it looked like a giant black mass hovering over the water. That image stuck in his head. Later, that mental picture would help inspire one of the most famous songs in rock history. We'll get to that in a moment. First, the band had to figure out where they were going to record. Their mobile studio was still there. They just needed a building. After some searching, they managed to book the Montreux Casino's Grand Hotel. They set up their equipment in the corridors and empty rooms of the hotel and started recording. But it wasn't easy. The hotel was still open, guests were trying to sleep. Management kept asking them to keep the noise down. For a band as loud as Deep Purple, that was almost impossible. Things didn't get much easier when they moved to the Pavilion Theatre to finish recording. The band set up in the theater and started playing. But they were loud, very loud, so loud, in fact, that local residents started complaining. The noise was carrying through the walls and disturbing the neighborhood. It didn't take long before the police showed up. Officers came to the venue and told the band they had to stop playing after a certain hour. They couldn't make noise past a set time each night. So Deep Purple had to work around the strict curfew. They had to pack as much recording as they could into the hours they were allowed. It was stressful, it was frustrating, but somehow it worked. In fact, some people believe that pressure actually pushed the band to work faster and more instinctively, which gave the album its urgent, live feel. Now let's talk about the songs, and we have to start with Highway Star. One of the greatest opening tracks in rock history. The inspiration for this one came on a tour bus. A journalist was riding with the band and asked Ritchie Blackmore how he wrote songs. To show him, Blackmore picked up a guitar right there on the bus and started playing a riff. Ian grabbed a pen and he started writing lyrics almost immediately. By the time the bus arrived at the next stop, the song was basically done. The lyrics are all about speed and freedom. Gillan wrote about a fast car, about owning the road, about the feeling of going flat out with nothing in your way. It was simple, it was direct, and it was perfect for what the band was trying to do. Highway Star kicks down the door and announces exactly what kind of album you're about to hear. And now that riff, the most famous riff in rock history, Smoke on the Water, came directly from what happened at the Montreux Casino. Roger Glover's image of the smoke drifting over the lake became the title and the central image of that song. Ian Gillan wrote the lyrics as a straightforward account of what actually happened: the fire, the chaos, the hotel recording, the police at the theater. It's basically a news report set to music. Ritchie Blackmore came up with a riff, and almost laughably simple, 4 notes, but those 4 notes hit like a truck. The song was actually not considered the star of the album when it was first released. Over time, it became the song that introduced millions of people to rock guitar. Every guitar student in the world learns that riff. It's one of the first things you play when you pick up an electric guitar for the first time. And then there is Space Truckin, which is pure fun. The band wanted to write something loose and driving, something I felt like it could go on forever. The inspiration was the idea of space travel, but not the serious scientific kind. This was the silly comic book version of space. Rocket ships and alien planets in wide open freedom. Ian Gillan filled the lyrics with nonsensical phrases that sounded cool and felt good to sing. Lines like "we had a lot of luck on Venus" and references to Jupiter and Saturn weren't meant to be taken seriously. They were just fun sounds. Gillan has said that sometimes a phrase just feels right, and even if it doesn't mean anything specific. Space Truckin is a song built for the end of a concert, when the band just wants to stretch out and jam, and that's exactly how they used it on tour, sometimes playing it for 20 minutes or more. I want to talk about one of the songs, and that's Lazy. It's kind of an odd one out on Machine Head. That's what makes it great. It's slower, bluesier, gives John Lord and Ritchie Blackmore room to show off. The song started as a loose jam. The band would often warm up by just playing together without any set plan, and Lazy grew out of one of those sessions. The title came from the feeling of the song itself. It doesn't rush anywhere. It takes time. It rolls along like a summer afternoon with nothing to do. It also gave Ian Gillan a chance to show a different side of his voice. Instead of screaming over a fast riff, he could be cool and laid back. Lazy provided the band with just about enough speed and volume. They had groove too. Machine Head was released in March 1972, and it was an immediate success. Critics and fans both loved it. It reached #1 in several countries. It launched Smoke on the Water into the rock stratosphere, and it cemented Deep Purple as one of the defining bands of heavy rock. What makes the story so remarkable is how much went wrong. The casino burned down, the hotel kicked them out, the police shut down the sessions. They were exhausted. They were cold and working under a curfew in an empty theater in Switzerland. And yet somehow they made a perfect album. Sometimes the best art comes from the worst situations. If you enjoyed this video, check out this Deep Purple playlist right now here on the channel. I have full reviews and breakdowns of all of their albums up to Machine Head at this point. I will be adding more as I make them, but I started everything from shades of Deep Purple all the way through Fireball, and it's a full journey. So you'll hear how the band grew from a pop-influenced group into one of the heaviest acts in rock history. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you appreciate Machine Head a little more, hit the like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and I will see you over there.